Okay, it's the Chief coming back to you again from Bakersfield, California. I'm going to talk a little bit about this new printer I bought, the Ultimaker3, which you see behind me here. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what I like and what I don't like about this new printer, so I hope you enjoy. So what you're looking at here is my Ultimaker3, and I'm just going to talk about a few of the things that I noticed about it. I made a list of things that I like and don't like about it, and I'm just going to run through them here, maybe not in any kind of specific order. So probably one of the things that I like the most about it is the setup with the extruder heads, where you can very easily swap out the nozzles just by grabbing this switch here and pulling them out. I can't do that now because I got filament loaded in it, but it's really easy to swap nozzles so that you can change nozzle diameters or whatever it may be, right? The unfortunate thing about this is that the way they got it set up, they've really set this whole printer up so that you're kind of forced out of convenience to buy all the parts from them, right? To buy these little modules that are printed real nice, and you know, the AA is for all materials, the BB is just for the PVA, which I have loaded up into it, but they kind of force you to buy, you know, their components here, which I don't know, I got mixed feelings about, right? One of the other things that I really like about the printer is that the noise level is super quiet, right? You can hear the Robo 3D printing over there in the background, but this Ultimaker is super quiet, which I really like about it. Another thing I like about it is the print quality. It prints awfully nice. I can't say that it prints that much nicer than my Robo, you know, which is an $800 jobby. I've done a few things to upgrade it, but it really, that Robo prints super nice for 800 bucks compared to 3,500. It's hard to touch, right? I like the dual extruder capabilities, which is what I got out of this. But then I'll talk a little bit more about what I don't like about that. Another thing too you notice, like with this Ultimaker, is that there is just a ton of freaking rods and belts and everything else. Now, being an engineer, I can't say I particularly care for the number of moving parts it has and the number of parts that require some sort of maintenance, right? So, I mean, in any machine, the more moving pieces you have, the more maintenance there is, and this guy's loaded with maintenance. I would say that this would be something that I would consider a typical European design, right? I think some of these Dutch folks, they like too much to make it too complex, and this one's pretty freaking complex, right? There's nothing special about the bearings where it slides on the rods. I bet they use the high quality. It does print super nice, right? But it's just a ton of moving parts. One of the other things that I don't particularly care for, you'll see here, is this touchscreen. Everything's done with this dial, and you press the dial, the loading, the unloading, the selection of filament, all that stuff is done through that touchscreen. And you can see the nice thing, it's got a USB port here instead of the SD card, very nice. And the Wi-Fi functionality, which is nice as long as you're using their Cura software, right? If you're not using the Cura software, you're going to have a tough time connecting to this guy and printing with it, right? I like to use Simplify 3D, but I don't really have that option unless I'm going to slice it up and simplify and then send it to Cura. Otherwise, I can't take control of any options while it's printing, right? Everything's done with this dial here, and they've really kind of dumbed it up so that it's very straightforward, but it's not that good of a printer, and I don't think any of the printer technologies have come along far enough in this market where they can kind of make it super simple, where it's one button touch to move, right? Not so hot in my opinion. The other thing too is that the loading and the unloading of the extruder comes here. You can see here, like when you go down to material selection, and then you can select the materials or the print core, which is what they're calling that modular extruder head that pops out, which is all right in this fashion, right? But some of the neat features that it's got about the printer is that it'll auto detect the material you load. It's got this little Wi-Fi, not Wi-Fi, but RFID style unit, which you can't see here on this, but if I come over here to this piece, this one here, you'll see that inside of this NFC is what it's called. There's actually it's got the wire wrapped around for the antenna, and there's a small chip in there which reads the ID, right? So you don't get that functionality. You got to set it from that stupid little dial if you don't buy their material. The other thing too, speaking of the extruders, now you see this piece here. This is the piece that kind of goes on the back, and it acts as a guide for the filaments, so you don't end up with something like this happening. You see where it's looping over. Now this material that I use is an Argos material made by Argos, which they make fantastic filaments, the PLA filament. I love printing with it. It's always exceptional quality, and the color always looks beautiful, but it doesn't fit with this little unit. It rubs along the side of it, and it jammed up my first print before I realized that. The other thing too is that, you know, for no good reason on their filament as well, the extruder got a little jammed up and it was just chewing away at the plastic. There's no easy way to clean it or to manually feed it unless you're sticking some kind of screwdriver in there or something, which is really a total pain in the ass, right? But and you can't necessarily jog it very easily, right? So it just grinds away, and I bet you when I had a problem loading it, it was about a half hour of fiddle farting around with it to get the filament reloaded and printing properly, right? My first two prints were fails, although the third one came out beautiful once it was printing. Let me see, what else do I not like? I like the noise level. I like the bed leveling, so I'll talk a little bit more about that as I spin this guy around. Now the nice thing about the leveling of the bed is that it's got these level screws here, as well as the multi-point touch leveling that it does. So you can really fine-tune how parallel the build plate is to the head using these screws, and it gives you some instructions. You just step by step runs it for you, tells you to move it here, then it moves the head, and then tells you to try it here, where you get a card and you stick it under, and then you just tweak the bed so it just fits right. And then from there it'll go ahead and level against the bed. So I mean, I think the level of the print comes out really nice, and it makes for the quality of the prints, right? One of the other things that I don't like about it is really the way that the options are kind of locked down for you. And I mentioned something about that with that one-touch control. You really have to step through these settings, and sometimes it's very tedious, you know, where you can just kind of load up the robo real quick, and I can swap filaments very easy. Swapping filaments or colors in the Ultimaker is not as easy of a task as the robo, right? Or some of these other style. I like the fact that the robo's a extruder that's got the drive mounted right on top. It makes it easy to print like Ninja Flex or other TPEs. And with the Ultimaker, they don't support a TPE. Some Bowden extruders say that they do. I'm not sure how well that works, but I really like the direct drive of the other style printers. Filament guide, I talked about that. Proprietary items. Yeah, one thing's for sure about this Ultimaker that I don't particularly like, and I know that folks that are Ultimaker fans, they're diehard about it. They won't print with anything else, but I don't really like the way all the options are locked down, and that they force you to get full functionality of the printer, like with the Wi-Fi and using the camera, which, there's a camera right here, but across Wi-Fi, it's not like you get a nice streaming video of it. You get like these little just snapshots of it, kind of smeared images across the Wi-Fi when using the Cura software, but you can't use the functionality of the camera or the Wi-Fi unless you're using their Cura software. I talked about the moving parts, and that's about it, right? So this printer in particular, I printed with it, and I think that there was a lot of things that they should have made clear when they sold it, or when they advertise it. As far as functionality, they say it's optimized with the Cura software and it's optimized with their material, but they really didn't pay enough attention to standardize the product so that you can use the printer with other materials and other software as easily as you can with some of the other devices that are on the market, right? So, given the pros and cons, the pros being the print quality, the noise level, the bed leveling, and the modular nozzles, and the cons being the number moving parts, the one-touch control, how a lot of the options are locked down or kind of configured to be you know, like guide you through from the display, which I don't really care for. The filament guide and the proprietary items, like, you know, having to use Acura software and the trouble I had with the extruder, I'm going to say that this was not a great purchase for me. Alright, I hope you liked my video, and hopefully it was informative. If you got any questions or any comments, just leave them in the comments after the video, and until next time.